Welcome back to Drash Ministries. That's who we are. It's not a place. It's not what we do. It's who we are. We love talking about the Bible. We love talking about application of the Bible, not just knowledge of the Bible. We got a bunch of teachers who do that. We're going to introduce you today to a new teacher, kind of new to those of you who are listening on Drash Ministries. Not at all new to me. Semi-new to Summer. Will, good to have you on Drash Ministries.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, in fairness, Will had no idea he was doing this. We'd like to think he came dressed like that for us, but it wasn't. But since he was so dressed up, we decided to put him in front of the camera because we have a very strict dress code down here.
Disclaimer, Drash viewers, if you walk in this door on a Thursday, you're going to be in this seat. Right. Just so you know. Unless you're wearing green.
If you've always wanted to be on Drash Ministries, just show up on a Thursday and you're going to make it. So, Will, first of all, it is good to have you here. Summer doesn't know nearly as much about you as I do, and I don't know nearly as much as most people probably do that are in your circle. Tell us a little bit about you and who you are before I ask you some questions.
So, first off, I'm Will Tompkins. My official first name is Robert, but I'm a junior, so I go by my middle name.
I did not know that.
Plus, the meaning of Will is much more impressive.
Which is?
It's mighty.
Mighty, steadfast warrior. And so in the kingdom, that works out very well, and it fits my personality. Because I've been a follower of Christ for many, many years, and if you watch my TikTok, Doing God's Will, I actually did a video of where I was originally saved at 7 years old at my Baptist grandfather's VBS ministry he did in Starbrick. Very small church.
Yeah.
So, but currently I attend Fellowship of the Cross under the discipleship of Aaron Bjork. And, over the years, I've grown with Christ quite a bit. And, but back to the warrior. Because in addition to being a warrior for Christ, I am also a civil rights warrior and believe in upholding the Constitution.
Fantastic. Now, I think that I heard your name way before I met you. But I met you, I think, at the flip side, which is super relevant to me because when I think about you, I think of you being an example of the flip side, right? That there are people who are trying to fit into a mold, and then there are people who are creating their own mold, right? And I think of you as one of those people, one of the people who is trying to fit into their own mold, right? So one of the things that you did recently, which was fantastically interesting to me, was you went to Jamestown, downtown Jamestown, on a couple occasions and had a little booth, a little table, a little place where people could come and get a hug from you. First of all, tell me a little bit about what inspired you to do that, and then tell us a little bit about maybe how that went.
So it's not just hugs, it's hugs and prayer.
There you go.
And so what inspired me is on YouTube, there are people that, they wear t-shirts and it's free hugs. And of course, this is all pre-COVID. And so it inspired me on a different couple of occasions, to mix that with my faith and make my faith relevant to the community is not only to just give free hugs, but also pray for people. And quite honestly, that's helped me with, realize that I have a gifting in the prophetic as well, too, because a lot of times in prayers, God's given me a revelation to actually to pray for these people. Amen. And so it's an amazing ministry outlet. And so any of the area evangelists can get a hold of me, and we can do that together. And so post-COVID, during COVID, I got over the whole hugs and thing with just adding to my sign that I claim Psalms 91.
So, all right, so I'm envisioning a long line of people, right? A good 2, 3, 4 city block line of people who just are going to take advantage of this opportunity to hug you, but more importantly, to pray for them, right? Again, we all need prayer. So scrap even the hug thing, right? There should have been a long line of people who wanted you to pray for them, right? I can also imagine that many, many, many churches in the area have invited you to come in and do that because they know that they have people who need hugs and prayer as well. So I'm asking you to tell me that I'm right on that.
The unfortunate fact of that is that everything happens within the perfect will of God, not what we envision things to be.
Yeah.
There's been times I've been out there for hours and only ministered to a couple of people. Mm-hmm. But what makes it good is that it's the people that God brought to me.
So I love that because I knew where it was going, right? It was a setup question. You have always been somebody who has gotten the fact that life's about the ones and twos, not about the 20s and the 30s and the 2000s and the 3000s, right?
Absolutely.
Life's about the ones and twos. And again, for you to go out and sit for a few hours, right? And wait for God to bring the 1 or 2 people that he has for you that legitimately need you, legitimately you can minister to. That is such an incredible testimony, right? But how do you, in moments like that, how do you fight through the whole maybe disappointment or discouragement or, hey, God, did you really ask me to do this? Or, like, hey, am I doing the right thing?
So I generally don't do many things, and I have, and it's been outside and learned my lesson that I don't do anything really outside of God's prompting to do it.
Ooh.
And so with God's prompting to do it, then it's easy to sit there and make them decisions because God told me to be there. And so until he releases me from there, I'm there. And everything within my Christian life and what has relieved a lot of stress and anxiety in my life is relying on God instead of natural knowledge.
We should have made this a seed.
I was
just thinking we should have made this a seed.
The word that came to my mind was obedience right away, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be obedience.
We just talked about this with somebody because there's a lot of big choices people have to make right now. Like a lot of people are choosing between like their job and their entire lifestyle and livelihood and like following God, right? And I just told someone yesterday, I said, you have to pray and factor that choice in a way that you do not consider any outcomes, which is not human, right? We weigh choices when we weigh, well, here's the pros and here's the cons and make a list and here's how you decide things. And I'm like, that is not God's way at all. Like, it's listen to what God says. It doesn't matter what the outcome is, and you don't need to know it. And he might not tell you. He might just say, do this. Jump off the ledge. Trust me and wing it. And it could be big. It could be small. Or it just doesn't make sense. Like, go sit outside with a sign. Like, okay, that sounds crazy. That's weird, right? Like, why, God? Do we need to ask why? Or do we just do it? And do we just say, like, all right, well, I'm just going to trust you. But that's the anti-human, right? Like, we have to know why, or we have to figure it out, and it has to make sense, and there's got to be pros, more pros than cons, or it wouldn't be God asking, like, that's hard right now to tell people, like, oh yeah, well, give up your entire life.
Absolutely. And seeing as though you opened the door.
She's pretty good at that. Yeah.
It's good. I believe when I was 17, God revealed to me very clearly that I was going to have something important to do, and he still has yet to narrow down what exactly it is in the time of tribulation in the book of Revelation. So for 30 years now, I've believed that I am going to live in the tribulation time period. And so I've had a mindset that, like you were talking, people are having to choose between their jobs and, these things that I'm already of the mindset that I have to have faith enough that God's going to take care of me when I can't buy and sell anymore.
Well,
That's a very conceivable thing that's coming in the near future, is that we're not going to be able to buy and sell as Christians. And also, to the point of when God says to go this way and it looks dangerous, and this way looks safe, that we choose that way that looks dangerous because God told us to go that way and not the way that's safe. You know, kind of like I bring up as a good example is if you've seen the first Left Behind, where the angel just walks him through the guard shack where someone just got shot.
Right.
The scene before. So, or like the three in the fiery furnace, or Daniel in the lion's den, any of these things. I believe we're going to see that in our lifetimes, and we're going to have that type of faith in our lives that we can walk into the fiery furnace and not be touched.
Man, I love that. I think, we've listened for the last 30, 40 years as people have presented Jesus as the great, pavement God. Right, he makes every road all smooth and new and great.
Teddy bear Jesus.
Right, he's never going to ask us to walk in the wilderness or any of these things. And so I think that a lot of people would use your analogy and they would say, well, of course God's going to he's going to make the path easier, right? That's what he does. He smooths out all the rough things. But your life has been one that has not been black paved all the time, has it, Will?
Oh, so that brings me to another TikTok video that I did shared recently, because God has showed up in my struggle so many times that instead of looking at my struggle, I look for God, where are you showing up in it? So what really set that into my being and has helped enrich my fellowship is testimony when I'm stuck in the woods on Thanksgiving night. I wanted to go camping in a new state lands, and I wasn't, so I wasn't sure of what road was what and whatever, and I took the wrong road and ended up on a road where the tire tracks got so deep that the underside of my car was rubbing on the middle. And so I turned the car around and I'm trying to come back out, and I'm only snow plowing the mud on my front bumper. So God. I couldn't get out. And I'm a very apt driver. I take Dodge Neons on ATV trails. So I mean, I'm very adept at taking cars where they don't belong. And I'm very experienced at it. And I've done very well. But in this situation, I couldn't do it in me. Yeah. All my skill sets were null and void. Right. And because it was muddy and I kept sliding down into the tracks, and I couldn't really get outside the tracks that well because of trees and bushes on both sides. And so in the end, so I just slept there in my car overnight because I couldn't do anything else. I got up in the morning and I said, I assessed the situation, got out the car and walked up the trail and was like, you know what, God? I know I can't do this. It's only you. Only you can do this. So, start praying in tongues, threw the car in first gear, let out the clutch, and I drove out of there. By the grace of God and with his miraculous help. Now I'm currently out of work on disability, and there was a glitch in the disability system. So for the month of July, and disability doesn't pay a whole lot either. But the month of July, I didn't get paid at all from disability. But guess what? I had enough practice looking for God to show up. I didn't even have to come over and say, hey, Andy, I need a little help. Yeah. Hey, Summer, I need a little help. I didn't have to do that. I just looked for God to show up. I didn't stress about my finances. Satan would get in there and start trying to give me anxiety. And I'm like, oh, no. My God is bigger. Amen. My God is bigger than this situation. My Bible says nothing is impossible. Amen. For my God.
And this is easy for him.
And so guess what? I gas enough to get to church every week. Yeah. I was faithful to go to other appointments in ministry instead of going, sorry, I can't make it, because I had to preach at the gospel mission that month. And instead of calling up and saying, hey, can you get somebody else, I showed up. And that's another ministry that's about the ones and the twos.
Yep.
Right.
We don't get like a bunch of guys. It's just one or two guys But
Intense.
the ones that need to hear the message that spoke that night are the ones that are there.
Man, I love that. Summer and I were at a Bible study last night up at our church, and usually we have 6, 8, 10 people sometimes, at the Bible study. And as we were driving back from an appointment, started realizing that it was probably going to just be 3 of us right there, which is abnormal for us. But the whole time we kept saying, this is a God thing, right? Like, this is a God thing. He is exactly who he wants here. And what a great time we had, right? And you start, at the end of it, you look back and you go, man, I'm so glad these people didn't come. I'm so glad that this was the way it was. I think of that, go back to the line, that I said that I anticipated you had. And you think of, man, if you had a line of people that went 3 or 4 blocks, everybody would have been, oh, what a great thing. Will, look at what you did. But the lack of time you would have had with people, the lack of intimacy with people.
Hug and go.
You're right.
Hug and go.
You would have just been, you just would have been this.
You would have been a vending machine.
I would have been, God bless you, have a nice day.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But God knows exactly what we need, right? So I want to wrap this up and then and in a second, but I got one more question for you, which is, all right, so you got to pray for a couple people what did you see out of that? Right? So again, not what big things, but what was the reaction of the couple people who did want you to pray?
Well, the thing is especially in the office of evangelism, you really don't most of the time see a return on your investment.
Yep.
And same with this. I mean, the people seemed blessed as they walked away. Right. But yeah, as far as having an expectation of seeing a return on my investment, where in the future, they come up. And the thing is I don't want them coming up to me and going, hey, thanks, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not me. It's only God. And I can't do nothing if the experience with the car shows anything. It wasn't me. None of it was me.
So I love it. Again, you said exactly what I needed you to say, right? Which is this. There are times where we're obedient, right? We do what God asks us to do. It's about the ones and twos. But we also don't see tangible results right at that second, right? It's about, like your experience to me, why I'm excited about it and talking about it with our Drash Ministry people is, it was just strictly about obedience, right? There's no guaranteed outcome. There was no tangible, like, 3 people, I talked to 3 people, all 3 got saved. You just were obedient. You did what God asked you to do, and you left it in his hands.
Amen.
And to me, I think that is, when we come at Drash Ministries, at the Epicenter, our goal is to come up and alongside people. We ask you this question: what do you want to do? How can we help you get there? Right? So how can people come up alongside you in the ministries that you're doing?
Well, the thing is a lot of times it tends to be quite spontaneous. So, I just put up a Facebook post, but I'm more than happy and willing to, once you see me put up something on my Facebook that says I'm doing this, or even for you to get a hold of me on Facebook and say, hey, I want to go out, but I don't feel confident.
Yeah.
I want to go out and minister, but I don't know how to do it. Or I just don't want to go out by myself.
Yeah.
I'm willing, as long as my schedule permits, to go out and teach how to evangelize, or to just sit with you while you're out there doing ministry. I'm a willing servant of God.
That's a pretty good thing to have you sitting behind me if I'm out there.
I know, right? I want to do it.
Sending Summer out on the shoots at Jamestown feels much
free
better.
hugs.
That's right. So, listen, I'm going to let Summer wrap this whole thing up in a second, but obviously, those of you who are listening, you've already gotten a little taste of Will, right? And you get his passion, but you also get his sincerity, right? He really, truly is a big teddy bear. And that's amazing. In our world today, to have people who are still soft and still willing to even hug people is an amazing thing. He's got a ton of stories. So I'm willing to bet that this is not the only time at Drash Ministries that we will hear from Will. So you probably can look forward to some more of his thoughts, teaching, stories coming soon. So if you like listen to the whole car story and you're like, what happened? How was it when you were out in the middle of nowhere in your car overnight? All those things. I'm pretty sure that you're going to get a chance to hear some of those things. So we're really grateful that Will joined us. Summer, wrap it up.
Always right. All right, guys. Well, this is funny because it's very similar to my last reflection video where we've been talking about obedience and making these big decisions. So, like we always say, just listen for God, find God in all of these things, talk to Him. Don't worry about pleasing people, and just do what He says. I told someone yesterday in this same exact scenario. If you're giving up something huge for Him, especially, He will bless you. He will reward that. It might not be here. It might be in heaven. You might not see it right now, but He absolutely will. And He will always take care of you, even if things look scary, even if the road and the choice and the obedience looks like a bad earthly choice. He promises to take care of you. You'll have food, you'll have shelter, you'll have clothing. You might not have a Beamer, but you will survive. So always, always, always look for Jesus and follow Him and do what He says. We love you guys. We'll see you next time.